All right, you guys. Well, I want to be respectful of your time because it is kind of crazy out there today. And I know we've got some busy stuff going on. I will tell you, this is one of my all-time favorite classes and one of the most popular that I've done over the years for the last, I don't know, kind of crazy, probably 15 years or something along those lines. But I want to know, like, who is ready? So we're pretty much coming up to the end of quarter 1 of the year, right? And now I have seen a bazillion classes, workshops, webinars, and more that talk about goal setting, vision boards, blah, blah, blah. Like, how many of you guys did your goal setting at the end of the year? How many of you did a vision board, right? And I'm not poo-pooing this because genuinely I know how important it is when you have a vision for what you want. So I'm going to give you guys a personal example, and some of you have probably heard this story before, but the truth is the home that I live in today is a result of a goal that I set back when I was 15 years old. So when I was 15 years old, I remember going over to a friend's house, and I'm there at my friend's house and they live on this 5-acre ranch. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I would love to live on a 5-acre ranch. Now, those of you who know me, I grew up very poor, single mom, even homeless at times. So the image and the dream of living on a 5-acre ranch was so far beyond what I could comprehend. Well, I wrote in my journal that day, I've always been a journaler, and I wrote in my journal that day that I wanted to have a 5-acre ranch by the time I was 30 years old. Well, true story, my husband and I were living in North Highlands. We bought our first little home in North Highlands, and I still had this dream of living on a 5-acre ranch. So we started looking for a home, and we're looking all over the place. My husband was born and raised in Loomis, California. I grew up in Chico. I know the area very well. And back in those days, we had newspaper ads. Anybody remember the newspaper ads? And I remember going through the newspaper and seeing this 5-acre bank foreclosure in Newcastle. And I remember telling my husband, hey, what about Lincoln or Newcastle? And he goes, well, yeah, no. I said, what about Newcastle? He goes, well, as long as it's not stinking Lincoln, right? Because he grew up in Loomis. So I drove out here. It's way out Sierra College. There was no development at that time. I get here to this dirt road. I go down this dirt road. I come around the corner and I see this huge oak tree with a tree house. And we had a 5-year-old son, Jordan, at the time. And I said, oh my gosh, this is the house. And I remember going around the corner, pulling up to the driveway. The house was vacant. It was bright neon yellow. There were weeds everywhere. There was an old pool that was green that had a chain link fence around it with ivy. And I called my husband. I said, we're buying a house. He goes, no, we're not. I said, yes, we are. You better drive on out here because we're buying this house. He's like, Marguerite, there's no way we can make it work. I'm like, we're going to find a way. So come to find out, it had seller financing at the time through Transamerica Financial, and it was 10% interest. And I was happy to get it, right? And so I ended up being, I just got my real estate license in December of 1993. And the very first contract I ever wrote was on the home I live in today. And so I wrote that contract. We moved in January of 1994. I had just turned 30 years old in December of 1993. So dreams happen, right? And it's amazing what can happen. Now, here's the other end of it, though, is that life is what happens when you are busy planning. So many of us have made all these plans and then life goes sideways, the market goes sideways, life happens. And so I want to tell you a story that happened long before coronavirus, right? It was back in 1997. And honestly, it was a time where we had just moved into our brand new office in Old Roseville, or downtown Roseville on Vernon Street. And we had just opened our own brokerage, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we had our son, Jordan, who was 8 years old at the time. And we had just had Jake and John, who were, I don't know, 2 and 3, 1 and 2 at the time. And our son, Jordan, who was a normal, healthy little boy till he was 8 years old, all of a sudden started having health issues. And we found out that he had a genetic disease called adrenoleukodystrophy. And sadly, at that time, we found out that he was going to need a bone marrow transplant. So we're 30 days into opening our brokerage. We had to pack up everything that we owned and moved to Minnesota so that our son could have a bone marrow transplant. So here we are with a brand new brokerage, about 10 agents or so working with us. And we had to go figure out how we were going to make this work. And so again, life is what happens when you are busy planning. We had a whole new office, all new furniture, all these agents. We had a big grand opening planned, and we had to drop everything and take our son to get a bone marrow transplant. So all the plans, all the goals, everything we had gotten set aside for what was most important to all of us, our family, right? So we had 3 days to get there. We had to figure it out. And luckily we stopped everything. We were able to put everything together, get our son a bone marrow transplant, and figure out a way to make this all work. It was a very difficult time, I'm not going to lie. Sadly, our son passed away in 1999. But the truth is, we got to spend a lot of that time with him, and that became our #1 priority. So I'm not saying all of this to bring you down, just to say that life happens, right? We get really caught up in all of the tragedies and all of the stuff that's going on, and we forget how important that the priorities are in our life. So if you are, I'm gonna mute some of you guys, there you go. So let's dive into the rest of this and talk about really what is the difference between goals and priorities. So a big thing that I see is so many people do is they set these goals, these wild random goals with no clarity, right? I mean, I've been guilty of this myself. And you're just sitting there going through everything and throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Get that, I totally do. And I don't ever want to be that person that tells you don't waste your time, or that will never happen, or what makes you think you can't hit that goal or can hit that goal. Like, who do you think you are, right? I remember that happening to me. But here's the bottom line. There have been national studies on goal setting, both at universities and workshops. Tony Robbins even talks about it, and it seems every trainer on the planet, including me, have a system and a process that they go through to accomplish things that are really important to them. And what all of them will tell you is that your priorities are always going to take precedence, right? And the other end of it is, if you want to really take things to the next level, tell someone else and have them hold you accountable. I will jokingly sort of say, unless your significant other is not your best I'll say that your significant other is not your best accountability partner, right? Like, don't use your accountability partner. And the truth is, you want to really knock things out of the park. I mean, get crystal clear, no doubt in your mind. You need to become hyper focused and obsessed about that particular thing you want in your life to look like, right? For example, I hear this one all the time. I even put this on my own personal goal list every single time, is to lose weight, eat healthy, exercise, right? Who has that on their goals? But what does that actually mean? Because it's not specific enough. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment, about what it takes to get really, really clear. What I'm hoping that you guys understand is the importance of writing down what it is you want, but then to take it one step further and get really crystal clear on exactly what you want to accomplish. I recently wrote a blog post over on my website, margueritecrescillo.com, about the value and the importance of writing things down. Now, if you guys have not logged into my website or gone to my website, make sure to add your name to the list, because that's where I send all the details out of what I'm doing. Now, the reality is they will become exponentially improve your results when you get crystal clear and when you become accountable for your results. So let's dive into this class. A couple of things to think about. Without goals and plans to reach them, you're like a ship that has set sail with no destination. Now, we do have a packet of information that we will send out to you guys after the class today, where you can actually write down your priorities, and we're going to show you some examples of that. And I encourage you guys to write it down, print it out. I mean, we'll print it out first, print it out, write it down, and then you can even laminate it and photocopy it and put it in a few different places around you. I have one put up on my wall in my mirror. On the mirror in my bath. I have one in my office. I have one in my car. It's helped me stay really focused. So what we absolutely know is that without goals and plans to reach them, you are like a ship that has set sail with no destination. And if you don't have a plan, you don't really have any idea what you want that to look like, then you can't be upset as to where you are in life right now, right? Your life has happened by accident, not by strategy. And so what keeps us really from setting goals? Well, here's the truth. A lot of times people don't set their goals. I know in my household, I'm the goal setter. My husband only sets goals when I get frustrated with him and he's trying to keep me happy. He thinks things will happen no matter what you do. For me, I want to be more clear and focused about what direction I want my life and my business to go. So for many people, they don't really have a good reason. And as I mentioned, when I asked my husband why he doesn't set goals, he just says, I don't know, it was never been my thing. Me, on the other hand, was making to-do lists as early as I could write, my mom would tell you. And we think whatever, I'll do it when I get around to it. And the other issue is that many of us have never learned the proper way to set goals. Like we're going to learn. Now, this is where maybe some of us need a little therapy help. We're afraid we won't accomplish them. We're afraid of failure. So we somehow get it stuck in our head that we aren't good enough or that we're not capable. We don't know what to do or how to do it. And we struggle with the truth is really at the end of the day, we're really just afraid. It might even be something you carry from your childhood when someone said, who do you think you are, Miss Fancy Pants? Like my grandma used to say to me. Maybe you've set a goal that wasn't really realistic for where you are in your life right now. But here's the deal, my friends, everything is possible if you truly want it bad enough and you're willing to put in the work. That's the key right there, right? Are you willing to put in the work? Now, we've all met those people who have all the odds against them. Every obstacle that you could possibly imagine was against them, and they were able to create amazing results for themselves. And I know for me in my history, again, as I said, I was raised by a single mom along with two of my brothers. My mom was trying to work a full-time job to provide for all of us, and would come home and take care of kids and a household and everything else. And truthfully, there was not a whole lot of time for her to help us with whatever we needed at the time. I had tons of obstacles that I could have as excuses to keep me from being what I wanted to be. For example, I know that my mom never had enough money to buy us school clothes each year, and that was always a challenge. She was able to get us the essentials like socks and under school supplies. But I remember when I was about 10 years old or so, I decided that I wanted to get new school clothes like all my friends were getting. I didn't know what to do or how to do it, and I was a kid, right? But then I heard that you could get money for collecting walnuts. And I grew up in Chico where walnut trees were everywhere. And they would give you a 50-pound gunny sack that we would take around to the neighborhoods and pick up walnuts. And they'd give you $5 a bag, right? We'd also collect soda bottles, if you remember those, and get paid a nickel a piece for them. So I remember working all summer long to earn money so I could buy myself some school clothes. So everything is truly possible if you want it bad enough. In fact, I don't know if this video will actually play, but I love, love, love this. If it doesn't play, you guys may want to go to YouTube and look it up. I don't know if you can hear it.
I'm too weak, too slow, too big. I ate too much for breakfast. Got a headache. It's raining. My dog is sick. I can't right now. I'm not inspired.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I'm allergic to stuff.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I'm fat. I'm thin. It's too hot. I'm not right. I've got shin splint, headache. I'm distracted. I'm exerting myself too much. I'd love to really, but I can't. I just can't. My favorite show is on. I got a case of the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday. I don't want to do this. I'm gonna do something else. After New Year's, next week, might make a mistake. I got homework. I feel bloated. I have gas. I got a hot date. My coach hates me. Mom won't let me. I bruise easily. It's too dark. It's too cold. My blister hurts. This is dangerous. Sorry, I don't have a bike. I didn't get enough sleep. My tummy hurts. It's not in my jeans. I don't want to look all tired out. I need a better coach. I don't like getting tackled. I have a stomach ache. I'm not the athletic type. I want to get sweaty. I have better things to do. I don't want to slow you down. I have to do this as soon as I get a promotion. I think I'll sit this one out. And my feet hurt.
So I love, love, love that video because we all have excuses, don't we? We all have a reason. And what is your excuse? What is actually keeping you from hitting your goals? We all have them, right? And what actually keeps us from accomplishing a lot of our goals? Well, the truth is that some of us lose interest. We don't feel it's important enough. We're not specific and we're really not honest with ourselves, but most importantly, we're not accountable, right? And so why are priorities so different? Well, the difference is, if you think about it like this, when you talk about, you have a goal of going on vacation and you want to take this amazing vacation to, I don't know, to me, the Maldives is where I would love to go, or to Italy. You have this amazing vacation on your goal list. Well, then all of a sudden you've actually made the vacation happen and it's scheduled for next week and you are leaving on Friday. Isn't it miraculous how much stuff you get done before Friday? I mean, now it's a priority, right? You get everything done. You got your stuff lined out. You got someone to take care of the kids. You've got everything packed. You've arranged for the dogs to be taken care of, somebody to watch your business. You're trying to organize everything. Your life becomes this huge priority because now all of a sudden you have a sense of urgency and you have a specific timeline and an order of importance. So for example, we all had to go through COVID year in 2020, a few years back. And can you believe it was like 3 years ago? It's kind of crazy. But what I remember is during that time, a couple things happened. Not only were we experiencing COVID, but I got diagnosed with breast cancer of all the times, right? There's no convenient time, but that time sucked. And thankfully, I'm all clear and cured and have no more cancer anymore. But during that time, all of a sudden, things in my life became more urgent. Priorities became more important. And I started to really look over my goals over the year and figure out what are the big things that I wanted to get done. Well, two things that became number one priority in my life, three actually. Number one was to get healthy and to stay healthy and happy so I could live a long, healthy life, to be able to see my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren became number one. So my health became a priority. Number two was we had lived in this house for 29 years and I wanted more than anything to completely remodel it from top to bottom. And the third thing was to get my book done that had been on my list for 10 plus years. Well, a few things happened. Number one, we started our remodel in January of 2021. And for anybody who's been to my house before, we literally completely gutted our home, completely remodeled it. Life, the whole universe conspired to help me make this happen. Being part of EXP, our stock went nuts and we did more business ever in the middle of a COVID year. And money came pouring in so that I could make sure that that remodel happened. And it did. And we live in our beautifully remodeled home now to this day. The second thing was I made that book a priority. And in January of 2022, I published my first book called The 100 Things I Love About You, which is about my relationship with my husband, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. And so I got my book published, I got my house remodeled, and I have spent a lot of time focusing on my health. And so decide what you really want, decide what you're willing to exchange for it. Keep in mind that you have to do the work. It's not as simple as throwing things on the wall and not putting the work or the effort in. You need to establish your priorities and get to work, right? Now, another important aspect is to put them in your priority. Like, I love this quote. I found that if you love life, life will love you back. And the reality is you can never accomplish somebody else's goals, right? You can help them with it. You can encourage them, but you can't set a bunch of goals for other people. You have to set goals for yourself. And put them in the order that best suits your priorities and reevaluate every 90 days. So in the packet that we'll email to you guys, there is this rating chart of where do you rate these 8 areas of your life. Now, again, this is only for you. This is not something you want to necessarily do with somebody else. They should do, if you have a significant other, they should do their own. And look at where you rate these different areas of your life. Like, how do you feel about your happiness level right now? Do you feel happy? Do you feel joy? Do you love your life and what it looks like for right now? Then mark whatever that is. Same thing with family, love life, spiritual, friends, self, work, and money. And then give yourself a score and write down the date, right? This helps you kind of keep track. And we're going to do this every quarter. And you can watch the recordings every quarter, however you want. But the truth is, if you rate your priorities, what you'll notice is that the ones that are the lower, if those become your focus, all of a sudden next quarter around, those you're going to see that your score has gone up, right? So keep in mind, we all talk about a balanced life. And there's this like point in our life when our life is going to be balanced and everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to be happy. And the truth is, it's not how it works. I mean, honestly, can I be real for a moment? Balance is bullshit. And so if you think about life more like a mixing board, you know, my son Jake is an audio engineer and a DJ. And I remember watching him one day as he had this mixing board and he was taking this music and he was moving all these levers and changing how things were. And he was constantly tweaking and changing the different sounds and the different things. And honestly, that's how life is, right? Like if you think of your life like a mixing board, when you're constantly tweaking and changing it, you make beautiful music. Imagine if every lever was in one place on that mixing board, it would have this boring sound, right? It would be nothing. So I encourage you to take a moment, cut out these little pieces and glue them on to the priorities list in the order that works for you. What is most important for you in your life right now? Okay. All right. So now we're going to dig into each of these areas. And what you're going to do is you're going to take and write down 2 to 3 things that you realistically and would love to do in the next 90 days. Okay. So we're not going to go crazy. We're not going over the charts and putting out huge things. We're going to look at what we can do in the next 90 days. So let's talk about each of these areas of our life. Family, right? Families are like fudge, mostly sweet with a few nuts, right? Like, how are your relationships with your family? And it might not be just your spouse or your kids, but what about your parents or your aunts or uncles or your extended family? Or if you don't have, you know, maybe you have friends that are more like family. But how are those relationships with your family? You know, the thing that I love to say is, if God forbid something happened to one of those people tomorrow, will you have said everything you wanted to say? And what I know is that we think about all the worst things about people when they're alive on here on earth, but the moment they die, amazingly enough, we remember all the best aspects of them. So don't wait until someone passes away to be able to remember the great things about them. And if you have a challenging relationship, sometimes the most important thing you can do is to just apologize. What is more important, the relationship or being right? This is really important stuff to think about. What can you do to improve the relationship with your family? Okay, maybe you have somebody that you know in your soul and your spirit you need to reach out and have a conversation with. Or maybe it's not that you don't have any issues like that. And maybe you would just like to do some activities with your family. Maybe it's a weekend away somewhere, or going to I know my friend Emily, who's on here, took all her kids to a theme park because it was pouring. She had tons of snow. She's like, I'm getting out of the snow and going somewhere where it's warm, right? What are some things that you could plan to do with your family? Maybe it's a family vacation. Maybe it's family game night. I know for our family, we love doing Sunday dinner, right? And so we've made it a priority to once a month do family dinner at our house where we all get together and play games, cook, eat, do fun stuff. Doesn't really matter what we do. What's most important is being together. And again, what is most important to them? Like, what would be most important to your family right now? I can tell you that for most families, the kids just want to spend time with you, right? There's a quote in my book that I wrote that says, all any child wants, or really all any human being wants, is that when you walk in the room to see your eyes light up. So think about that for a moment. Think about what that will look like when you go home to your kids tonight, or even to your significant other, your spouse. And the minute they see you, your eyes light up like you're so excited to see them. Watch the difference in how they behave and how they act. All we want in this world is that when we see somebody, for their eyes to light up, right? There's no better feeling than to walk in and they're so excited. You can just see their eyes, the smile in their eyes, and the excitement and the happiness that they see. And look at what your kids will do differently when you walk in and they see you just grin and be so excited to see them. It's a big difference. So you're going to write down 2 things, the 3 things that you can do with your family in the next 90 days. It might be a family date night, might be reconnect or reach out to a family member in need, might be planning a family vacation. But the goal is to write down 2 to 3 things that you can accomplish in the next 90 days around your family. Okay. So the next one is happiness. I love this one. Happiness is like peeing in your pants. Everyone can see it, but only you can feel its form, right? And this little cartoon over here, it says, where did you find that? I've been searching for it everywhere. I created it myself, right? How happy are you? I know that we all go through phases in life where we're happy and we're not feeling so good, but are you making others happy? And what makes you happy? Like, what is really important to you? I know that there are certain people in my life that every time I see them, they are just happy, right? And I don't always feel that way about myself. And it's something I have to work on and focus on and make sure that it is a priority. What kind of things make me happy and what makes you happy? What are some things that you could do in the next 90 days that make you happy? I know I chose my word for this year to be joy. I just wanted more joy and happiness in my life. Things for me are like, I love taking baths, right? I love walking around my property. I love getting around my family and just laughing. It just makes me happy. So what are some things that you could do? Maybe it's getting out in nature more. Maybe it is spending time with people you care about more. Maybe it's watching a comedy show. My husband's a stand-up comedian, so he loves it when I go and watch his comedy. But what are some things that in the next 90 days you could do to make your life more happy, right? All right, so let's dig into this next one. So self, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. And truth is, in order to say yes to your priorities, you have to be willing to say no to something else. There's a quote from the Velveteen Rabbit that I love. He said, you become, it takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all because once you are real, you can be ugly except to people who don't understand, right? I love that quote from the Velveteen Rabbit. First and foremost, are you comfortable with yourself and what would you like to improve? Do you make yourself a priority? Like, yourself is so important. When you love yourself and you take care of yourself, you're allowed to be there for other people, right? And so what are some things that you could do to take care of yourself in the next 90 days? Maybe it's exercising a few days a week, losing some weight, getting a massage, right? Doing things that bring you joy. Might be clearing out some areas in your home to create a beautiful corner or a space that you love to be in. What does that look like? So your goal is to write down 2 or 3 things that you can do in the next 90 days to accomplish more stuff around yourself. Let's talk about spiritual. If you're peaceful and happy, know that you're close to yourself. If you're sad and stressed, know that you're close to your ego. You know, it's interesting in my life, I've seen a lot of things that get cause a lot more. The thing that to me causes more problems than anything is our ego, right? It gets in the way of a lot of things. And so, do you feel connected to your source, whatever that is, or whoever that is for you, right? Do you spend as much time as you would like with your spirituality? And how can you improve this area of your life? How can you give? What I know and I've learned in my time on earth is that the most important thing you can do is to express gratitude and be grateful. Taking a few minutes each day to write down the things that you are grateful for, what you love in life, and what's most important, and writing those things down makes a dynamic shift and a dynamic change in everything in your life. What are you grateful for? What can you give? How can you help others? What we all know is the more that you give, the more that you get, right? But that giving has to come from a genuine place of giving, not giving with the intent of what can I get back? What's in it for me, right? So how connected do you feel to source, and what could that look like over the next 90 days? For example, maybe meditating, starting yoga, going back to your church, giving back to the community. Like, what kinds of things can you do in the next 90 days to help improve this area of your life? All right, this is a good one. Love. Marriage is a relationship in which one is always right and the other is the husband. Love that, right? Now, here's the reality. If you have one, how can you make it better, right? If you don't have one, do you want one? And what does that look like? A couple of great podcasts that you might want to listen to or Rise Together. My husband Joe and I did one for a short period of time, Chris Pillow Talk with Joe and Marguerite. And my relationship with my husband, we have been together now 37 years, and I will not lie, it has not been easy, and definitely many challenging moments. And in fact, I wrote my entire book I wrote about our relationship. And here's what the I don't know, the synopsis of the book was. My husband and I were going through a difficult time. We had lost our son, Jordan, who passed away in 99. We had young kids and we were just trying to figure life out, right? And life was stressful. I was working a lot. He was working a lot, the whole bit. And I remember waking up one day and I said, today is the day we're either going to an attorney or a counselor. And my husband, like probably most men out there, was like, huh? Like, he was a little oblivious to what was going on, right? Well, luckily he's a smart man. He made an appointment therapist and we went to the first appointment and they're like, why are you here? And he's like, because she made me. And then I said, that's wrong answer, buddy. Then the next appointment we go to and we talk about family backgrounds. My husband is first generation American from Spain. His parents were born in Spain, so old world Spanish family. Myself, I came, as I mentioned, from a mom who'd been married 4 times, so I didn't really have any good role models or examples of men and relationships. So the third appointment, you go back and you're there for the therapist says, so let me ask you this, are you done, or is there still a chance that you could make this work? And I said, well, my husband's at least here, so I'm at least willing to put in the effort, right? So he says, well, I'd like to the things that you love about your husband. I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think I can come up with anything right now. I'm not very much crazy about him. He said, well, why don't you go home and work on that list? Well, I'm not going to lie. It took me a few days. I couldn't think of anything. And then I woke up one day and there was tea next to my bed, which my husband makes me tea or smoothies every morning. And I said, well, I love that about him. He said, well, my husband is funny. He's now a stand-up comedian. He's a good dad. And I started to make the list. And truth be told, I only made it to 45, but that relationship saved our marriage. Why? Not because my husband did anything different or changed anything, but because my focus shifted. My focus became a priority of the things I loved about him instead of the things that drove me crazy. So what are some things that you could do with your significant other in the next 90 days? I will tell you that love letters are valuable, and I love love letters more than anything. Even I've told my kids for gifts and things each year, the thing that I love the most is when they write love letters. But for your spouse, could you write them a love letter? Could you schedule a weekly date night or plan a vacation getaway? Another thing that my husband and I have done is for our anniversary comes up, and what does everybody do? They're like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Dinner, sure. Where do you want to go? I don't care. Where do you want to go? And your anniversary becomes a chore as to what you're going to do, as opposed to a celebration of your love. So a few years back on our 9th anniversary, we decided we were going to alternate whose year it was to plan for our anniversary. So that first year, Joe was in charge. Our 9th anniversary, and for 9 days he gave me 9 something every day. So that was pretty good, right, ladies? I got 9 flowers, 9 cards, 9 books, 9 different things one day, 9 kisses, right? 9 things for 9 of every day. Well, not to be outdone, because I'm a little competitive, next year was number 10. So I did a scavenger hunt that included my friends and gifts, and he had to find me at the 10th place. It was a ton of fun. Now, I'll tell you, we did have to establish some rules. Rule number 1 is you can include advice and opinions and insight from friends, but you cannot take them with you. The second one is, if it is your turn to plan, it has to be all about them. And this came as a result of our 15th anniversary, where my husband had won some silent auction gift with a buddy to go golfing in Hawaii, and sounded great. So the 4 of us end up this trip. We go to Hawaii, we get there, and my husband, it was a 1-bedroom with a loft. We had our couple friends with us. That didn't work out so well. And on top of that, my husband planned to do golfing and Harley riding all week, which is neither one I like to do. So that anniversary trip did not go so well. So at that point, we decided to make some rules around our anniversary, which again, you can include friends or advice and opinion, but you cannot take them. And if it's your year to plan, it has to be all about the other one. It gives you some insight to start paying a little more attention to what's important to your significant other, right? All right. So again, what are 2 to 3 things you can write down with regards to your love life that you can accomplish in the next 90 days? All right, let's talk about friends. Good friends don't let you do stupid things alone, right? Do you have any friends? If not, go get some, right? Have you neglected your friends? Many times we put friends to the bottom of the list behind, family, work, life, all these other things. But what I know is that when I get around a bunch of my girlfriends or good friends, we laugh, we joke, we have such a good time every single time. And they're there to support and love and encourage me, right? So what are some activities that you would love to do with friends? And you need to write down a couple things that you could do in the next 90 days. Maybe it's just planning a date night out with a bunch of your friends, do a guys girls weekend getaway, right? Call some old friends to catch up, do a fun friends game night. These are fun things that you can do to improve those relationships with your friends. All right, let's talk about the next one, work life. I love this cartoon. Sometimes I feel like I have the worst job in the world. Yeah, right. So first of all, do you have a job, right? Number one, that's most important. And do you like that job? For those of you who are in real estate, do you love it? If you don't love it, it might be time to look at doing something else, right? If you do love it, what can you be doing in your current job to improve what's happening? Maybe it's getting a schedule going. Maybe it is figuring out how you can improve that job. Maybe it's getting into an office or changing companies or whatever that might look like. But what do you love about your job? How can you improve the different areas of job and what that might look like? Maybe it's the people you're surrounding yourself with. I don't know. But what are 2 to 3 things that you can do that can help you in your work life? Maybe it's delegating what you hate. We have a great class about that. What about knowing your numbers and really diving into what those numbers look like? We do that in our sales fuel class where we talk a lot about that. Creating a weekly schedule. That's a class that will be coming up in a few weeks. It's also available on YouTube channel. So you guys can hop on over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. All of these trainings are available in there, right? But what are 2 to 3 things that you could be doing in the next 90 days to improve your work schedule? So, all right, we're getting down to the wire here. Money isn't the most important thing in your life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale, right? And many of you might be feeling that pinch right now about money, right? With the market shifting and things changing. Do you have enough in savings to survive or to get through challenging times? Do you have a budget and how much do you want to save? What I know is that when times are good and people are making plenty of money, ironically, they don't pay attention to their bank accounts and things like that. But when things shift and they're not making as much as they were, all of a sudden they're noticing that $9.99 subscription that you got somewhere, right? I mean, I'm here to tell you that money is the number one cause of issues in relationships in business. It's really important. A few things that I use, there's a great app called Mint. And on Mint, you can actually add all of your credit cards, bank accounts, everything, mortgages into that. And you can see what you spend on a daily basis. And you will be blown away at how much you spend on little things. One of the things that I've done too is once a year or so, I'll cancel my credit card and you'll be amazed at all the subscriptions and things like that that you have completely forgotten about, right? That are no longer working on your credit card. And so it's important that you scroll through those things. I mean, honestly, last month I scrolled through subscriptions and I saved almost $200 a month in little things that were being charged by credit card, $5 here, $10 there, $20 there, right? There's also a great book called The Latte Factor by David Bach. It's a fantastic book that talks about why you don't have to be rich to live rich and what you can do. It's a really good book. I interviewed actually John David Mann on my podcast, and it was a fantastic fantastic interview. So what are some things you could do in the next 90 days, right? You can read the book Latte Factor by David Bach. You could open a savings account. You could add $1,000 to savings in the next 90 days, or maybe it's even just $500, whatever that is. Maybe you could set up where 25 bucks a month goes into a separate account, right? These are all things that you can do in the next 90 days to feel like you've made some progress in these areas. And it looks like my slides got moved around a little bit, but let's talk about happiness and how important happiness is an inside job. What are some habits that you can do to be a little more happy in your life? Be kind, eat well, exercise, meditate, keep an open mind, and put your needs first. Don't make excuses. Speak well of others always. I will say that one thing I can tell you about my husband is that he never has a bad word to say about anybody, right? So what are 2 to 3 things that you can do in the next 90 days to create some more happiness in your life? Maybe it's learning a new joke to make others laugh, right? Watching a funny movie, attending a comedy show. My husband's got one coming up in April, I think. So you can attend a comedy show or do things like that to make you laugh and make you happy. What I know is the more you laugh, the more great things seem to come into your life. Many of us get too serious so many times, right? All right, so that kind of wraps it up. So why every 90 days? Well, the difference between those who get things done and those who don't are some of us who just throw this in a drawer and forget about it, are what we put in front of us. So every 90 days you can do this. And what's even fun is I've had people come to my classes and bring me the ones that they've done before where they've marked things off. And it's so incredible to see what they've been able to accomplish in such a short window, meaning just 90 days. So do you guys have any questions? I mean, a couple of things. You can definitely join my private Facebook group. And be sure to stay up to date on trainings, events, and much more at margueritecrescolo.com. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and see if you guys have any questions, comments, thoughts, anything I can answer for you today. It's so good to see all of your beautiful faces. Any questions, thoughts, comments, ideas?
No,
All right,
I really,
guys. Yes, go ahead, Marty.
yeah, I appreciate, you sharing this with us, and it gave me a lot to think about. I plan my goals, but I plan my goals based off of how many homes I'm going to sell, how many hours I'm going to work a day towards my business. But I've really never planned about how much I'm going to spend with my spouse or my children. The reason why I get out of bed, I've never put a goal behind besides money instead of, my family, which is the exact reason why I get out of bed every day.
Exactly.
So I got a lot to work on right now. I'm pretty pumped about it, actually.
Good. Well, I love that insight because again, like I said, many times we get so focused on just trying to accomplish one goal that we forget about all the other areas of our life. So I'm happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, and it gives you more to, count the wins, right? You can put way more in your win columns when you have
so ridiculous.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, anybody else? Yes, go ahead. Oh, you got to unmute yourself now. I muted you. Sorry, because you were talking.
Oh, so plans change all the time. So I was kind of struggling with my goals this year, starting the goals for this year, trying to figure out, my why kind of changed. So I actually started reading Find Your Why and Start Your Why by
Great
Cynic,
book.
and it actually helped me refocus on what my why now is. So now I had to change the goals for this year because of my why changed.
Yeah.
So that's what's in the process.
And that's the thing too, is that's why I think that priorities help more along with your goals, because like I said early in the presentation today, that life, is what happens when you're busy planning, right? And so we have all these big goals to make things, and then things change in an instant. And you have to make sure that you are able to flex with that and change with it. And that's why I love priorities, because they change all the time. Life changes dramatically in an instant. And when you shift your focus to what's most important, it changes how you look at things. So thank you for that, Chris. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. We do this every Tuesday. It's open to anybody with any company. So please do share. Make sure to follow me at margueritecrescillo.com. Make sure your name is added to our email list, and you can follow me over on YouTube. So thank you guys so much. Make it an amazing day. Bye-bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Marguerite. Thanks for doing this.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.